analyzed in the laboratories fragments from ancient altars covered by sandstorms or volcanic ash. A surprising result caught my attention. Along with the fragments of the sacrifices, which sometimes also contain human remains, there are traces of plants with psychoactive effects. In fact, traces of drugs. The smoke of these plants produced a euphoria to those present, which they believed was due to the goodwill of the gods. The priest lied on purpose while breathing the smoke from the altar installed addiction. Gradually, the repeated return to these altars brought enormous financial income to the priests. Nothing new. And today, drugs offer the illusion of getting rid of problems, promise a false state of well-being, install addiction, and begin the gradual destruction of the body and irrevocably the mind. Drugs destroy lives and ruin families. Welcome to Steps in Recovery, a program where we plan to bring hope to people who struggle with addiction, to bring hope to their families, and also to raise awareness about the possibility of getting prevention of this problem. I'm here in our Loma Linda Springs studio. My name is MargiAnne Isaia. I am a licensed professional clinical counselor, and I am very pleased to introduce to you my guest, Marissa Partee. Welcome back, Marissa.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Marissa is a behavioral health specialist, and addiction counselor. And today we will continue our discussion about relapse, what to do when you relapse. You told us that relapse is part of the recovery. It's part of the process. It's nothing to get like no hope.
Yes.
What to do?
So, my biggest suggestion when it comes to relapses is the first step you want to make is to reach out to somebody. You want to let somebody know where you're at, okay? So asking for help is very vital in that process because you prolong being able to return back to a recovery-based life. We get into that habit of keeping secrets, staying in that place, and no one knowing where we're at. So asking for help is very important as a first step, okay? So seeking other people in our recovery, some of our support system components, our therapist, our psychiatrist, somebody that's part of our support system network. And then, of course, you want to start having a sense of understanding what happened, what occurred, what was the trigger. Those moments of really self-reflecting and have somebody being a part of that reflection so you can recognize and start planning. I always like starting a relapse prevention plan as soon as possible with the information that's already available to that person that they've gained. So, yes.
You mentioned reach out for help. We talked about in another presentation that addiction is like disconnection. You try to stay away from people. Recovery is getting together. Relapse send you back to secrecy, to being by yourself, and this is why conform to the, according to the model of recovery. We need the social support. It's nothing to blame yourself. And for people who will be there to support, they need to know this is part of the process. It's not something the person did it.
It's not. It doesn't come down to inadequacy. It doesn't come down to not caring. It doesn't come down to, not loving yourself enough. Like when it's on the basis of the disease of addiction, this is kind of that process we go through to get ourselves closer to a better lifestyle, a better life, a better us. So asking for help gives us that chance of letting somebody know where we're at. I always like seeing even attending a social support group, the mutual support group. So again, 12-step programs, attending an NA meeting, an AA meeting. Even in that environment, maybe people may not know you, but you speaking up and sharing what you're going through, you will more than likely get that sense of support. You'll hear in the end other people share, man, I'm glad you said that because I'm going through that too. Or I'm glad you said that because I am too, and I didn't have the ability to tell anybody. And that's the power that we see in being able to speak up.
And we'll talk about the importance of attending meetings because people are there and they share the experience, and this is their support. You talk about relapse prevention plan, and this is the point of the client working with counselor, working with therapist, and knowing if something happened, this is what I have.
Yeah, who are my three people I'm going to contact if I need to? What's the next step I'm going to take? And then we start considering, what does your coping look like? What are your coping tools? Another big one that I really like to emphasize is self-care. If there's a time for self-care, it's going to be after a relapse. We need to recognize that habit of self-compassion, like I am trying, I am doing my best, this isn't easy, this is a disease, and being able to give back to ourselves in a positive way, rather than the destructive way we're used to, which is, you know, in taking substances and it impacting our livelihood, doing something better for ourselves, looking for things we can do to give back to ourselves despite messing up, despite a setback.
And the point we want to emphasize here, relapse is not a failure, it's a new experience. Yes. And when the family understand that it is an accident, we cannot blame people for an accident. We are there to validate the struggles. We are there to say, we are here to support.
That full acceptance, it's powerful. The last thing we want to do is shame or guilt somebody into something they already have shame and guilt for. So what we do is we do more damage when we cast that shame onto somebody that is trying, but you know, may not be effective in their attempts, but they're trying, and we discredit their attempts. That could do more damage. A lot of people end up going back to that cognitive thinking where it's like, well, then why do this, right? And then there's that negative thinking pattern that we see in the brain, and that results in continued use because we don't feel worthy.
Let's talk about relapse as a stepping stone toward future successes. If you have a client, if you can discuss about this.
I feel a lot better if I have a client that I am working with that does relapse. Because I have a greater chance in helping them recognize what contributes to that relapse to create a very amplified relapse prevention plan. If I work with a client that has no relapses, there's a big chance when they're done with the program or they're done with treatment, they're going to experience the relapse after. And I won't be there as a support system because I'm no longer, they're not in my care at that point to help them through that. So it's very beneficial for me and that client to work together in that stage of relapse. It's going to benefit them, and we'll get the insight we need to really make an effective, amplified relapse prevention plan.
Regarding relapse as a stepping stone, how we might understand this?
I think that relapse is necessary as a stepping stone because it allows us to gain that necessary insight that we need to help that client create a very effective and amplified relapse prevention plan, because more than likely what happens is they leave treatment, they finish services, they've had no relapses, they're going to face more challenges, but they won't have the people that they once had in their recovery system. So it is better at the earlier stages while you're working with somebody in treatment to experience a relapse with them. So we know how to really amplify a plan, a relapse prevention plan.
And this is why you need to have a very good therapeutic rapport with the client, for the client to be open, open and honest, 100%. Because this is what happens when they say, I felt like, but I won't say about, because if I'll say, I want the therapist, I want the counselor to hear something, and I know what to say in order to let them feel like, oh yeah, I have this experience. And I say, no, I won't believe. And we need to be really, really honest. And honesty saves.
It does, because they also say that secrets keep us sick. And I see that. I see that in recovery. I see those that try to work an honest program, but they have some areas where they're keeping secrets and being very private, and that just causes for high-risk behavior. So keeping certain friends in their lives a secret and claiming, you know, that they've detached from them, like those are those early warning signs that we see that there might be reservations that we identify to use because they might not be in the appropriate stage of change.
And secrecy kills.
Yes.
You have a lot of trauma, keep the secret. You have substance use disorder, keep the secret. They go together, and you might die because not being honest is life-threatening situation. Tell us please some relapse prevention principles.
There's a lot of principles. When I think of relapse prevention, I even think about the 12-step program again, because it's a very effective tool we see being used in recovery now. And they have many principles that are very honorable to live by. They have integrity as one of them. They have humility as one of the principles. They have helping others as a principle. They have family, unity, fellowship, because again, we need healthy people in our lives as our support system. So you really have to consider just what's really going to help that foundation. So structure, routine, those things that benefit us all around that will help us maintain an effective difference in our lives. Motivation's a big one. Without motivation, you'll struggle maintaining any sense of abstinence, because again, you might feel like you're doing it for somebody else. So being self-motivated is a very big principle in recovery.
And get prepared for a new life.
And yeah,
it will be a new life, new friends, new habits, and the family needs to be prepared that you cannot bring this person back. It happens when the person is a new person, family is not prepared, and we'll talk about what's the work the family needs to do. Otherwise.
Yeah, because if the family unit's full of dysfunction, it's going to be a high-risk situation for that person to return to that. Yes, they have skills. Yes, they're learning new ways to live. But I mean, you're asking somebody to be completely challenged day in and day out through their whole day in that environment. And that's not conducive to what's really going to support their recovery.
Let's go to outpatient support group. 12 steps.
12 steps. Yes. 12.
Something to make people understand you need to incorporate attending support group meetings. It's a must.
I see many people avoid this component of the foundation of recovery. So the beauty of 12-step is that I think there's lack of knowledge and lack of insight regarding what 12-step is. It is a program. It was founded through AA, so Alcohol Anonymous was the one to present the program. But where we're at with 12-step programs now is amazing. It's evolutionized. We're talking about so many different types of programs that's not limited now to just alcohol. We've seen the Narcotics Anonymous program grow very largely. That's a well-known group now too. But there's other groups. It's not just substance. It could be other things. We're talking about Codependent Anonymous now, which is amazing. I see that make a difference in many people's lives. I've seen Emotions Anonymous as well. There's so many different support groups. So I really, it saddens me to see people try to take this out of their foundation for recovery, because there's so many options that you can explore to see what fits you in terms of a support group, and then working in that program. It comes with 12 steps. It has certain principles that coincides with some of those challenges. It has a daily support group where you can go in physically. It's even online now. So there's a lot of options when it comes to what type of 12-step program you're interested in, and my best suggestion is to start exploring what types of groups there are, because there's a lot, and I only named a bare minimum of them. But this is where we are able to explore the biggest factor and component, which is spirituality. This allows us to recognize that some of the things that we're going through are way bigger than ourselves. And we have a group of people that have very similar struggles as us that are, new to the program just as we are, or have been working the program and have had so much success. And there's that fellowship. They have willingness to show you how they did it, and they're there to support you and hold you accountable. And the biggest factor is that spirituality. It's knowing that we're in this together, and having that component of the spiritual practices. So prayer is a big one in there, and the fellowship's a big one in there, and then helping others. And it really helps us, a lot of us in addiction and then going into recovery, we lacked a lot of spirituality. So we're starving in it, and it's a great point to then start getting that within your recovery foundation.
Thank you so much for this, because I have clients who needs to cut the emotional bonds with the family because it's so toxic. It was, and it is toxic. It is triggering to the client all the time, and say, you need to work on problems you have there. There are problems you have in your family of choice, and the only family you might have on this earth is your recovery family.
Yes.
And I'm glad you mentioned that one of the biggest advantage of 12-step is that introduces spirituality, and the steps are well done, well designed. It's a progression there.
It is a progression.
And it brings together emotional issues, because we try to integrate spirituality with psychological issues in our life. And it's working. It's working. I had clients who said, I don't want, I don't need. There are some disadvantages. If you can mention some of the disadvantages of
I think when I think about disadvantages, and I think about what I hear from clients that I encourage to get into a 12-step support group, is I'm not religious. There's this stigma that 12-step is religious-based, which already that's lack of knowledge. It's not religious-based, because if you're familiar with the material that they have within the programs, it's spiritual-based, and they support an open array of what your spirituality may look like. So they don't stick to specific religions, and I think a lot of people take that as a disadvantage, like, oh, I have to be Christian, or I have to be Catholic, like I have to be religious to do this. But I love it because one of the steps is being able to recognize who your higher power is. And that's where the connection of spirituality comes. What does your higher power look like? Who is it? And then allowing your higher power to take control, and we let go of that control that we think we have. So I think that is the biggest disadvantage, but I also think it just comes with a lack of understanding of what this 12-step program really is. It's a spiritual program. It's not a religious program.
And people need to understand that when your transcendence needs are not met, it won't be possible for you to maintain the long-term sobriety. Because we'll talk in another session about patterns of chronic relapses. And one of them is not having meaning. You don't know who you are. You don't know why you are living for. And this is the point of getting together and creating this belonging.
Yes. And I just witnessed that recently, thinking about a client that really struggled. She was, going through the program and treatment, and she felt really confident and good about where she was going. And the team that she's working with in our clinic had some concerns about some behaviors that were rising. And we helped bring it to her attention. And of course, she felt like she was being given a consequence instead of being rewarded. And then over the past weekend, she, did what she knew she had to, which is what she said. She knew she had to do what was right. So she got into the 12-step meeting. She started sharing about some stuff, and by the time she left that meeting, she met somebody who was interested in recovery now. And she said that was the biggest gift that she didn't know she needed, but now she was accepting her circumstances because it was going to play a part in someone else's life and their recovery. And she said it was worth it. And there's the beauty right there of how this works. We give experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah, exactly, because we learned that the more you give to society than you receive is promoting mental health. And this is how 12-step recovery is part of the therapy, because these are the social skills you develop. And we call us like culturally competent. If you don't believe in God, what are your values? What are you living for? And people start thinking, because once you try to create your meaning or look for meaning, we teach them, is this value in line, is your behavior in line with your meaning?
Absolutely.
And this is, we go to acceptance and commitment therapy. Anytime you want to do something, check, is this behavior, is using drugs in line with your value system? I say, step back. Smart recovery.
Smart recovery.
We don't have in Romania is another program.
I see Smart Recovery is another program alternative to 12 steps. I see a lot of people successful in this in adolescent, teenager ages. It's very beneficial to them. It really breaks down self-management, and it helps train them as they become further in adulthood too. I see it. It gives a lot of tools without it being so fundamentally based around how the 12-step approach is.
Anyhow, the point is develop your group support.
Yes.
And work for others.
Yes.
It's like I am responsible toward myself, but my recovery, it will be part of my responsibility to other fellow. It's motivational, it's inspirational. It's sort of normalizing your self, like your feelings, because you know somebody else was there.
You don't feel so alone. And
exactly.
One of the things I also encourage a lot of my clients that are new to 12-step, and they're interested, they're wanting to go, and they're even considering a sponsor. So what my suggestion to them is, when you get in those rooms, look for something that somebody has that you want, and kind of build a rapport with them to see how they're doing it. That was a very well-known approach that I had been suggested over the years, and I see it work. We go in those rooms and we look for people that have what we want, and we learn from them.
Yeah, whenever you go and attend a meeting, you go intentionally.
Yes.
I'm going there not just to be there, I'm going there for something. This is my goal. Because I had clients who said, what do you say? Because my sponsor relapsed. What would you tell them about?
It goes back, it goes back to relapse happens, and it doesn't matter how much time you've attained. If anything, it's more of an awakening moment to hear somebody being 10 years clean and relapsing. So it goes back to, what did they experience? What trigger did they have? Do they have a plan in place? Are they honoring, what they know helps conduce a they're maintaining their recovery.
And thank you for pointing this, because what I'm trying to tell clients is recovery is a lifestyle. It penetrates everything in your life.
And why wouldn't you want to maintain that with all the work you've done to make so many changes, to have a healthier life with so much other opportunity? Why wouldn't you want that maintaining? But it is a lifelong maintenance.
Thank you so much, Marissa. We look forward to having you further to talk about family, because family has its role. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And very, very glad to have you.
Thank you.
We are glad that you followed our dialogue today. On our part, it is a way of extending a helping hand to those who listen to us, presenting recovery as a serious, logical, scientific, and very possible action if it is followed step by step. If somebody right now struggles to attending some meetings, not attending, there is hope, or there is no hope, I'm telling you, there is hope for you. Do not despair. God is there, close to help and support you. I am MargiAnne Isaia, and together with Marissa Partee, we invite you to future shows.